Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
fair. Once again, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to the listeners. Um, First and foremost, I'd like to thank Transport Events for having me on this webinar. At the same time, also thank Cameron for sponsoring and Ram for sponsoring the event. Yilport, maybe a little bit about Yilport. Basically, Yilport is, we define ourselves as a game changer in port operations and management. And one of our motto is basically privilege becomes standard. Like for today's session, let me give you a brief over on Yilport Holding. I think we're one of the fastest growing international port groups identified by Drury in 2019. We are currently ranked number 12 as a global operator. And our mission is to go up to the top 10 league by 2025. We are present in 10 countries. We have 22 ports and terminals, 6 inland terminals, and basically 5,000 employees. Our primary focus obviously is in Turkey, where we have basically, as you can tell from the presentation here, we have terminals in the Izmit Bay area and in Yilport in Gemlik, 4 in the Izmit Bay area and 1 Gemlik, and we also have dry terminals, 3 dry terminals within. Attached to up to Gebze and a further few dry terminals further down in the south. So, and then we're also present in Oslo and Sweden, in Gavle and Stockholm. We have an inland depot and also Gavle multipurpose as well as container terminals. We are present in Portugal, where we operate 7 terminals in Lisbon, in Porto, Leixões in Porto, and it's all generally right down, and 2 terminals basically in Lisbon. The rest are along the coast, and 2 in Spain, in Ferrol and Huelva, in the north and in the south. And we are equity partners with Terminal Link in Malta, Freeport. And of course, our latest terminal that we started up earlier this year in the height of the COVID was in Taranto, Italy, where we took over the concession the second half of last year, finally take over in February. And we have basically now 2 weekly calls feeding Italy to Turkey and vice connecting over Malta with CMA CGM. In South America, we have a presence, a footprint in Guatemala, where we operate in Quetzal, Puerto Bolivar in the province of Machala, and we have a JV with DP World out in Paita in Peru. So that in a nutshell is where we are and how we're growing. And at the moment, we're in discussions to start up in Gulfport, Mississippi. We're waiting for approvals from the various authorities, Seafoods and all these other people before we end up, hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be up and running in Gulfport, Mississippi. Our focus is generally not only containers, but generally most of our terminals are multi-purpose terminals. And now moving on to the topic of today's discussion on the automation challenges, container terminal operation. I think case for automation is very clear. The 4 basic pillars, right? You're talking about efficiency and productivity improvements. You're talking about preserving the environment, environmental concerns, cost considerations, and of course, last but not least, safety and safety. Well, I think depending on where you are and depending on which part of the world, the considerations change. Particularly, for example, in Asia, where labor cost is not as an impact. So obviously, the pressures on reducing costs are a lot lower, but obviously then you have more people on the ground, so then HSE becomes a concern. But overall, I think most people agree that there are 4 main pillars, which is basically improving operations, environmental cost savings, and separating man and machine. Where are the areas that we can operate? Obviously in engineering technical, where we have environmental and sustainability concerns, augmented workforce, again, HSE, operations, cargo handling, quayside, lashing, twist locks, and nice to see that Cameron and Ram have come up with an automated twist lock handling. I think we've metamorphosized in all terminals from having people initially under the cranes. Now we have pinning stations, and in future, obviously, hopefully we won't have people at all. Right, and of course, process orchestration, vessel call management, and planning. One of the things about Yilport, I think, when one of our cases for our drivers for our automation was basically the fact that a little known fact that we do centralized planning. We have a global operations and planning centers, one based in Istanbul, and another one in Iberia. And we plan all our terminals, vessel planning, berth planning, and yard planning from these terminals. So which forced us to go quickly into looking at different elements like gate OCR, et cetera, and crane OCR. Moving on to the next slide. For someone like us, you know, a terminal, which is, as I said, number 12 in the world, one of the challenges in being a smaller terminal operator is obviously when we approach our suppliers is trying to get them to scale down their solutions. Obviously, it's like in line of shipping where you got the top 7 controlling 80% of the global tonnage. Similar statistics show arise for terminal operators. So all these terminal automation out there is basically meant to be a larger scale, and we need the challenges for us to get it down to our size, scalability. Security, I think, is a primary concern for a lot of people now today, in the light of the hacking that's been going on with the line of shipping, etc. Wireless, is it automation ready, right? In my opinion, it looks like it, but technically, but is it robust enough? Device and sensor management, that's another area that needs an area of improvement. So what do we have already in Yilport? We basically, as I said, we do centralized planning. So wherever centralized planning is in play, we have gate OCRs, so minimize people at the gates. Everything is feeding into the TOS. We also have crane OCRs, and I think Anthony asked me when we had a brief session, is basically, as most of you are aware, in this industry is optical character recognition. We also have, with all our RTGs and RMGs, which we predominantly have in our stable from Mitsui, auto steering and anti-collision systems. These remove basically flagmen and things like that from the exercise. Where are we in progress at the moment? We have major projects going on in Gavle, and again, for us, cost drivers, and obviously moving towards automation in Deschamps and Liscont. We are moving towards automated RTGs. At the moment, we have supervised RTGs moving towards automation. We're looking at automating our billing and invoicing processes. I think most terminals do have that, using pumping from Navis directly into SAP through a middleware. And currently, we in the north in Sweden, where we run, as I mentioned earlier, a dry facility where we run a state-of-the-art warehouse for the paper industry. We're using automating our horizontal transport between the terminal and the warehouse. The intent for this is obviously, again, drivers our efficiency and cost in the north, right? And obviously challenges there. We've picked the worst place, I mean, the most challenging place, because obviously you have winter, you have snow, and we're using a process of not using AGVs, but converting existing horizontal vehicles, thermal tractors, for automated use. All right, so some of the main considerations that we have, or rather considerations we face, is, I think, implementing the system, as you say, as it says over here, is just the beginning, right? Again, for us, as I said, being a small terminal operator, getting it scaled down to size. I mean, most of our terminals are about 1 million TEU capacity. So we're not into the transshipment, we're gate ports. We need to have we need to be right sized. And one of the challenges, obviously, in any automation process, I think most of us will appreciate, is obviously it's a company change, culture change, and change management, right? And we did that in our journey towards the Global Operations Planning Centers, or GLCs as we call them, where we had to, I suppose, allow the terminals to trust, or to allow a centralized center to look at cameras and dictate and dispatch vehicles in the yard, horizontal vehicles from the yard to the RTGs and to the QCs, right? So these are the challenges that we have. And with that, I think my 10 minutes are up or thereabouts, and this is my last slide. Thank you.